Okay, hello and welcome to this tutorial. Not sure exactly how this will work out. I'm going to try and keep this as a single tutorial. We'll see how long this takes to set up the images. So this is going to be a simple enough tutorial on setting up reference images, but we'll see how long it takes, and if it takes a while then I'll stop it after I've got the image set up, and then I'll have a second tutorial on modeling the face. Otherwise I'll just go straight into modeling the face. So let's just set this up. So I'm going to go File, New, and so I want to import an image, but I'm going to use this image as my texture to put on the face. So I'm going to use it as a reference, and I'm going to use it ultimately for my texture. So before I create a new image, let's just have a look. So this one here, if I go Image and then image size, so this was taken on a phone, so it's 5,000 pixels high and 3,000 pixels wide, so it's quite a big photo. So I'm going to go File, New. Now what I'm going to do is this image is going to be wider than it is high. So the width, or sorry, the height should be 2048. And the reason it should be that height is because when you're using images in 3D packages, they should always be to the power of 2. So like 256 by 256, 512 by 512, 1024 by 1024, 2048, 2048. Now why should they be to the power of 2? Well, the graphics cards that are in modern computers find it much easier to resolve graphics on screen if the images that are being put on the meshes, etc., are to the power 2. So now, so that's its height, so I'm going to do twice the width. So if we multiply this out, so so I think this is, what is it, 4096. It should be my, so just multiply that by 2, and it's a transparent background. That doesn't really matter, but we'll leave it like that for now. So this is going to be twice as wide as it is high, and these are in pixels, not in inches, where you'll end up with something enormous. So there's my image. So I'm going to take, we're going to get the font first, so I'm going to undock this, and then I'm literally going to using my move tool, drag and drop that in here, and you can see it's considerably bigger. Okay, now how do I make this smaller? So I go Edit, Free Transform, and now up here I have the width and the height expressed as a percentage. So I'm going to say, so let's say if we go 50 and 50, so 50% of its original size, and then enter. Okay, and then I can move that into position. Now I could probably have it a little bit bigger than that, considering we're not going to use most of this, but for now that's fine. At least if I go 50 and 50, then the rest of these images I can drag in and change them an appropriate amount. So I'm going to take this one, bring it in, oops, drag and drop that in there. So again, I'm on a different layer over here, so I'm going to transform this layer without it affecting the layer underneath. So 50% and 50%, and then enter, and we'll worry about the scale of this in a minute and the positioning. So we've used this one, so I can close that. We've used this one, I can close that. So we've got this one to drag in, so drag and drop that in here. Oops, drop that in there. Again, we're going to rescale this, so we'll go Edit, Free Transform, 50, 50, and enter. Stick it there. And what have we got? Yeah, so I can close which guy? That one. Close that one, and then we're left with one more. So we will take this and drag and drop it in. Then I can close it here, and I can you can see it's actually quite soft, so I may end up not using that. Actually, it doesn't look like it, so that the camera has taken that photo out of focus. So I'll drop it in anyway, but I probably won't use that if it's out of focus. So I may need to take your photo again, Stephen, if you're watching this. This is Stephen, by the way. I will say no more, and I won't give surnames, because this is going to be online. So now let's go back to our first layer, and we'll move this to the side. So we're kind of placing them up along the side of this image here. Layer number 2, we can move this over here. Now I'm just going to use my rectangular tool here. I'm not interested in anything either side of that, so I can go and get my eraser tool and make sure it's nice and big, and that is not what I want. So I want to actually go selection inverse. So I basically want to delete what's on the outside of the selection, and obviously it'll only delete what's on the layer that's selected. Go back to my move tool and move that roughly to there. We take layer 3, Control D. Let's move this into place. Going to do the same with that one. So we'll, and then we go select, invert, and then go to the eraser tool and rub that out, because we don't need it. Go back to move, and I'll slip that there so that Stephen is looking at himself in some sort of horrific way. And then our last layer here, again, I can just use my selection tool to go there, select, inverse, and rub that out. Now, so I've got my 4 images in a row. They don't look like they're quite scaled properly. So what I do is I go view, new guide, horizontal. Okay, so here is a guide. Now this guide won't be visible in the likes of Blender, but it gives me an indication of whether things are aligned. Now I'm going to add in a couple of these. So I'm going to add in another new one, horizontal, and we'll have one for the mouth and one for the eyes just to start with. So as we look across here, you can see they're wildly out. We'll add in one for the top of the head as well. So new guide, horizontal, we'll just pop that sort of up here. So the main image is this one. So let's position that image there, and now let's take these guides and reference them from this first image here. Now if needs be, I can zoom in a bit and place this sort of in the center of the mouth, and if I scroll up here, place this at the top of the hair. Now there's a few things about these photos that we need to remember. The first one is perspective is a strange kind of thing, particularly with a camera phone. So Stephen's face here that we're looking at, this is not an accurate representation of his face. This curves away very quickly as if we were using, say, a fishbowl lens. So his nose, as we look at it here, is actually bigger, and this kind of eyebrow region here and forehead are actually larger than if we were to see him in real life, and that's because of the curvature of the lens. So let's take this second image here and see if we lower it down, does this match? And it doesn't. So the scale is slightly wrong here, the head is smaller. So how do we fix that? We go edit, transform scale. Now so I'm going to move this here to maintain the aspect ratio. If I just pull this sideways, his face will get fat. So if I hold down Shift and Alt at the same time, it will scale it on both X and Y axes simultaneously. So let me just place this here. So I've scaled it up too much. So we're trying to get the eye line and the mouth. So again, still too big. now I'm a bit too small, I think. Yep, still too small, so make it, so we're nearly there, a tiny bit bigger. So now, tiny bit bigger. A little bit of time spent now will save us a lot of trouble in modeling. So that's not bad there. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. Okay. And enter. Now, I'm going to sacrifice this image here because it's out of focus, and I'm going to move this one away a bit. And you can see again, this is too small. So edit, transform, scale, and scale it up a bit. We want the eye and the mouth, yeah, it needs to be a bit bigger. Now I could scale this using sort of percentages here if I wanted, but life is short. Yeah, we'll dock you in there. Okay, that's not too bad. Enter. Okay, so I'm going to fit this on screen, and I can afford now to take these two images and move them, you know, slightly this way, just making sure they stay correctly on. Now, so this is far from perfect. I'm going to take this line here, check, say, top of eyebrows, tip of nose, bottom of chin. Now again, our model may have changed the angle that their head was at, so you know, these are not, you know, perfect photographs as reference images. Okay, so this what we have now is eminently workable in 3D. So I'm going to save this as an image. I'm going to bring it into Blender. This took 12 minutes, so this took longer than I thought. So I'll save that, end this video, and then this will be the reference images that we use, but it'll also be the texture that we use on the finished mesh. So I'm going to go File, Save As. I can save it as a JPEG, so I'm just going to stick it on the desktop. If I wanted to come back and manipulate these layers, I'd save it as a Photoshop file. But I don't need to do that, and I'm going to keep it at high quality, so it'll be 4 meg. That's not too bad. Okay, we'll finish there and then move into Blender.